Right now, as you are watching this, American airports are grinding to a halt, flights delayed, security lines stretching for hours, passengers stranded with no answers. And where is Congress? On a 2-week vacation. You heard that right. The Department of Homeland Security, the agency responsible for airport security, border control, and immigration enforcement, has been shut down because lawmakers could not agree on a funding deal. Democrats refused to greenlight the budget without changes to how immigration enforcement operates. The White House revised its offer, border officials held late-night meetings at the Capitol, and still nothing. Meanwhile, the president threatened to deploy ICE agents to airports, turning an already chaotic situation into something out of a dystopian thriller. And the worst part, with Congress heading out for a scheduled 2-week recess, this shutdown could drag well into April. Nobody is coming to fix this anytime soon. But hold on, because today's news does not stop at the terminal gate. We are also covering a deadly runway collision at LaGuardia that left 2 pilots gone, a 48-hour ultimatum to Iran that could reshape the entire Middle East, and a staggering $80 billion tech failure that everyone saw coming but nobody stopped. Stick around because the most important story is waiting for you at the end. Before we dive deeper, if you find this kind of analysis valuable, hit that like button and subscribe. Every single like tells YouTube's algorithm to show this video to more people, and if you want to go a step further, consider supporting us through super thanks or sponsorship. We spend hours researching, verifying facts, and filtering out the noise so you get the real story. Your support keeps this channel independent. Now let me tell you what happened at LaGuardia. An Air Canada Express regional jet was taxiing after landing from Montreal when it collided with a fire truck on the runway. Both the pilot and co-pilot lost their lives. Dozens of passengers were injured. 2 police officers were hospitalized in stable condition. 72 travelers and 4 crew members were on board. The plane was moving at roughly 24 miles per hour at the time of impact. The FAA shut down the entire airport until mid-afternoon, diverting incoming flights to other airports or sending them back where they came from. And here is the really uncomfortable question. How does a fire truck end up in the path of a moving aircraft? That is not a weather event. That is not a mechanical failure. That is a systems breakdown, and someone will have to answer for it. Air Canada would only say it was, quote, aware of the incident. Aware. 2 of their people are gone, and the best they could manage was corporate boilerplate. The airport reopened hours later, but for the families of those pilots, nothing will ever reopen the same way again. Now, let me shift your attention to the Middle East because what is happening there right now could affect your gas prices, your grocery bills, and the global economy for years to come. The administration gave Iran a 48-hour ultimatum: open the Strait of Hormuz or face the destruction of the country's largest power plants. And if you think that is just tough talk, consider this. Iran already fired 2 ballistic missiles at the joint American-British military base on Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. Both were intercepted, no hits recorded, but the message was clear. Tehran is willing to strike targets thousands of miles from its borders. And you know what happened next? Congress received a request for $200 billion to fund the ongoing military campaign against Iran. $200 billion. That is not pocket change. That is not a rounding error. That is a staggering sum that is already tearing Capitol Hill apart. Democrats filed half a dozen war powers resolutions trying to limit the president's authority. The Senate rejected every single one. But that is only half the story. NATO Secretary General announced that 22 countries, most of them NATO members plus Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, the UAE, and Bahrain, are joining forces to secure the Strait of Hormuz. He called the campaign against Iran absolutely necessary and said the president was frustrated because European allies had been, in his words, too slow. Think about it for a second. 22 nations mobilizing for a single waterway. That tells you everything about how critical this situation has become. Honestly, when was the last time you saw Japan, South Korea, and Gulf states all signing up for the same military operation? This is not routine alliance politics. This is a global emergency response. Now, here is a question for you. What do you get when you spend $80 billion building a virtual world? Apparently nothing. Meta just announced it is shutting down Horizon Worlds, its much-hyped VR platform. Starting in mid-June, the app disappears from Quest Head stores and VR headset access gets cut off. The metaverse was supposed to be the next evolution of the internet. Remember that? Everyone was talking about buying virtual real estate, creating avatars, attending meetings in digital spaces. Well, reality had other plans. Turns out people prefer living in the real world. User interest was a fraction of what was predicted. $80 billion in losses. Let that sink in. You could fund a small country's entire annual budget with that money, and instead, it went into a digital ghost town where nobody wanted to live. Meanwhile, if you think the cyber front is quiet, think again. The FBI director accused Russian hackers of compromising thousands of accounts belonging to Western politicians, military officials, and journalists across Signal and other encrypted messaging platforms. Thousands of accounts. The scale of this breach is enormous. And the irony, while Russia cannot keep mobile internet running in its own Leningrad region, where over 60 drones were shot down in the largest aerial attack since the war began, it is apparently quite capable of breaking into the private communications of Western leaders. Nearly 100 flights were cancelled or delayed at St. Petersburg's main airport. The war is steadily creeping closer to Russia's major cities, and ordinary Russians are beginning to feel it in ways they cannot ignore. By the way, if you are finding this analysis useful, drop a comment below. Tell me what story surprised you the most today, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. The more engagement we get, the more people this reaches, and the more informed our community becomes. Listen, there is one more angle to this Hormuz situation that most people are missing. An analyst posed a provocative scenario this week. What if the president told European NATO partners, look, I can secure America's own energy supply through domestic resources and leverage places like Venezuela, keep prices low heading into November elections, and let Europe figure out its own oil crisis? Countries that refuse to help protect the strait would face skyrocketing energy prices, and their governments would likely collapse under voter anger. New leaders would emerge, ones far more aligned with Washington's agenda. In other words, energy dependence is not just an economic issue anymore. It is a political weapon. And the 22-nation coalition forming right now, that might be less about collective security and more about survival, because every government in that coalition understands the alternative, being left alone with a closed strait, rising prices, and furious voters who will not forgive them for sitting this one out. Every like, every comment, every share you leave on this video does something remarkable. It tells the algorithm that this content matters, that people want real analysis, not clickbait. We put genuine effort into researching, cross-checking facts, and making sure you get the full picture without the spin. That takes time, and honestly, it takes resources. If you believe in independent analysis, consider supporting us through Super Thanks or becoming a channel sponsor. It is not about the money. It is about building something together, a community that values facts over noise. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Leave a comment. Tell me which story hit you hardest today. I genuinely read every single one.